Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. Free for all Friday. Talk about anything that's on your mind. Let's grab a call to start this segment from Marilyn in West Side, Michigan. Reminder, by the way, that you can access this program. We have audio and video streaming at afr.net. You can go there, audio and video streaming live. We also have apps for the iPhone, the iPad, the Android. We have podcasts. We upload the video segments to our website almost instantly. So a lot of different ways to access our content. Marilyn in Westside, Michigan, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mr. Fisher. I've been enjoying your program a lot.
Thank you.
I am a legal resident in the U.S., but I am not a citizen yet.
So you are legal?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally legal.
Okay, good.
Yes,
I just want to make that. I just want to make that clear because I couldn't tell whether you said you were illegal or legal, but you're saying you are a legal resident of the United States. All right, go ahead.
That's correct. I have been listening to the topic about the children being quote unquote smuggled in or transported into the U.S. I have a thought that every parent, they would want the best for their children, and sometimes it's hard for us to imagine what kind of living condition the children are living. With the smugglers, they would use all kinds of ways to profit from these children. And I just feel that it's for the children that were being transported here, as Christians, we have to be very careful not to categorize them as those people. Instead, it seems like we should really go back to why the problem with the children being, I'm using the word transported here, because probably life is hard in their own country. And what causes life hard could be the leadership there. And also, why are the children being transported here? Another reason is who opened the door for them? It's not the parents. It's the administration here. They are the one that opened the doors and said, "Come on over here." So I guess what I'm trying to say is we, as Christians, we need to be very careful. We have to show compassion to the families, understanding. At the same time, we need to separate the issue from the people. The problem is from the administration, the decision makers, not the children.
Well, let me ask this question, Marilyn. I'm going to hear what you're saying, and I, the need for compassion, all that. Everybody understands that. Everybody accepts that.
Right.
I'm not sure what you're seeing as the solution here. You're saying the administration's at fault. We agree with you on that. What do you think is the solution?
I guess the solution is it has to go back to the leadership because.
Yeah, but Marilyn, what do we ask the leadership to do? I agree with you. This is a leadership problem. What do we demand that they do to solve this problem?
That is a good question.
Well, let me suggest two things, Marilyn. Let me suggest two things. Mm-hmm. I think, number one, we have got to seal up our southern border because we do not want to expose young, vulnerable children to the unconscionable risk of riding on the top of freight trains across the country of Mexico, being exposed to rape, being exposed to physical abuse, being exposed to sexual abuse, being in the hands of the Mexican drug cartels. We do not want that for any living child anywhere in the world. And our open border is making it possible for these children to be exposed to that risk. So that's step number one. We have got to seal up that border so that they cannot sneak these kids across the southern border. Number two, we need to get these kids reunited with their parents. We need to load them up in planes and fly them back to the capital cities of their home countries, whether it's Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras. Fly these children back to those capital cities and trust the governments, their government, to reunite them with their children. You know, you think, Marilyn, about the effort we go to. I mean, we send out these Amber Alerts. We put the pictures of missing children on milk cartons. Why? Because we know that children belong with their parents. We will move heaven and earth to get children back where they belong in the homes of their parents. That's where these children belong. 3-year-old unaccompanied children do not belong in some kind of barbed wire prison camp in Nogales, Texas. They belong with their parents at home. So I mean, what do you think about that as a solution? Lock up the border and get these children back to their parents.
I totally agree with you, but may I ask a question? And I am not asking it for argument's sake. It's strictly a question. It seems to me it still goes back to, or maybe here's a question. Maybe the governors. I am not trying to put them in a hard spot, but maybe some of them they need to put their foot down, have more of a backbone. It seems to me, from listening to your program, more and more people in the leadership position, they, for the sake of protecting their political future, they started just wimping out. There's no more backbone. Stand up. Because I guess what I am hearing what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. But who gives the final decision to seal up the border?
Well,
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Is it the governor's decision, or does it have to come from the administration?
Yeah. Well, and you raise a good question about what governors can do. I know that the governor in Arizona, I believe, is suing the federal government, but who knows how long before we get a decision, and who knows whether President Obama will even pay any attention to that or not. And I honestly don't know what the options are for a governor in this circumstance. I understand what you're saying, that we ought to look to governors. I just don't know what their options really are, because these kids are, well, what the government can do in Arizona when they drop them off in Phoenix at these Greyhound bus stations. I mean, if they know they're coming, then the local authorities can show up and say, no, you're not going to dump unaccompanied kids in the middle of Phoenix. We're not going to let you do it. We're not going to let you unload this bus in downtown Phoenix. You're going to have to take that to someplace else and then accompany that bus back to where it came from. I mean, you can get your highway patrol and you can accompany that bus. Now, you can't accompany it into Texas, but you can accompany that bus to the border of Texas with the lights flashing, and you can hand them over to the Texas Highway Patrol. We are not going to allow this bus to unload its illegal cargo in the state of Arizona. So that is something, that a governor could do, but he's got to know that they're on the way so they can, so they can be there to greet the bus before the kids get off the bus and then get on another bus and go, wind up going to, to who knows where. There may be something they can do on their own borders. They could back up. I assume they could back up. They could create kind of their own line of protection away from the American border, because that's got to be patrolled by the federal government. But they could set up, a wall, 100 yards within that on sovereign Texas soil and say, look, we're going to apprehend anybody that has no right to be in the United States, and we're going to do that. And then we're going to take them to the border and give them back to the Border Patrol. But when you have the Border Patrol loading up these unaccompanied children in planes and flying them to Air Force bases, there is really nothing that a governor can do about that. And that's why the president has done that. That's why he's flying them to Air Force bases, because those are under the control of the federal government. There's not a single solitary thing that a governor can do about that. So he kind of gets these kids and the problem kind of out of the reach of governors of these states. All right, Marilyn, listen, I appreciate the call. It's a difficult set of circumstances. Let's play this clip. Ted Cruz, clip 13, we'll finish with this, talking to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson about this problem of illegal immigration, particularly among young children. Let's listen.
In 2011, there were roughly 7,000 unaccompanied minors who were apprehended. In 2012, that number rose to 14,000. In 2013, it rose to 24,000. And in 2014, your agency is estimating it's going to be as high as 90,000. In 2015, the administration is estimating that it will rise all the way to 145,000. Now, it's important to understand what these numbers represent. These numbers represent children, little boys and little girls that their parents are handing over, not to some noble social worker trying to help them. They're handing over to international global criminal cartels that smuggle human beings in. They put these kids, among other places, on top of fast-moving freight trains. These are criminals who sexually assault, who physically assault, and who sometimes murder these children. These are little girls that are sometimes being sold into prostitution and sex slavery. Now, Mr. Secretary, you testified to this committee that the increase is a result of violence in Central America, and there is surely violence in Central America. But if you look at the statistics, in particular, you can see where they were. These are unaccompanied minors in 2011 and 2012. Midway through 2012 was when the administration unilaterally granted amnesty to some 800,000 people who had been minors, the so-called DACA proceeding. And you can see shortly after that, the numbers spike dramatically. Is it really your testimony that granting amnesty to some 800,000 people who came illegally as children had no effect in causing a dramatic increase in children being handed over to international cartels to be smuggled in here illegally?
So that's Ted Cruz saying, look, this is directly traced to President Obama, this DACA program, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I mean, the title says it all. If you can get here as a child, you get to stay forever. And there's no accident that there was a spike in this kind of illegal human smuggling of children when that program was announced. So President Obama is responsible for this humanitarian crisis at the border. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy, to the only God, our Savior, be glory, majesty, dominion, and authority before all time, now and forever. God bless you. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday.
The views and opinions